it's just about that time for WNBA All-Star. So as fans, it is our duty and obligations to make our All-Star votes. And more than likely, if you've been putting in your votes like I have, we've noticed a few of the same things. First of all, the guards only have 4 slots. And while you can probably name your favorite 4 off the top of your head, we know at least 1 to 2 of those slots are guaranteed by certain players. And then when you get to the bigs, they have 6 spots in the front court, leaving some players to be rewarded just in the fact that we have to fill those last 2 spots. Just like previous years, there will be some pretty big snubs. So on one hand, this is exactly what All-Star and all WNBA is supposed to be, awarding the best players. But unlike all WNBA, All-Star is voted on by the fans. You get some input from the media and the coaches. So of course, while the most talented are usually awarded, a little bit of a popularity thing is going on in there as well. So let's take a look at the voting system, which players usually get snubbed because of it, and maybe some tweaks the WNBA can use before this can gets too far down the road. So the biggest thing with All-Star voting is obviously the guards. There's only 4 spots, which gets very interesting when you consider how many excellent veteran guards are in this league, but they're going up against some spectacular rookies. And these rookies aren't just filling up the stat sheet. They've got fans from their college days on top of these WNBA fans. Where in some previous years, these guards may have been guaranteed starters, where now they'll be lucky to grab one of these reserve spots. And as a fan, you're only picking 4. Again, so let's say Paige Beckers, Caitlin Clark, Olivia Miles, and Chelsea Gray for good measure. You still have Rhyne Howard, Jackie Young, Alicia Gray, Courtney Williams, Skylar Diggins, Veronica Burton. Like, where are they supposed to go? And these are excellent top tier guards we're talking about here. And ultimately, you just run out of room. And you know you have AZ Fudd fans trying to sneak her in there. And there are only but so many reserve spots between the 2 All-Star teams. And then you get into your front court. They're giving you the ability to choose 6 bigs. Off top, you probably have Asia Wilson, Brianna Stewart, Aaliyah Boston, Neko Gumake, Angel Reese. And some fans at this point are like, okay, I just have to pick 2 others to get this vote in. Now, I feel like I ran out of votes, but hey, I think that sentiment actually leans closer to just wanting to recognizing there are still guards in that lineup that deserve an All-Star slot over one of the remaining bigs. At least as a personal opinion, which is absolutely fair. I mean, Courtney Williams is an excellent example of a top tier guard, but who do you take out of that 4 slots to replace her with? Which is a fair assumption in most cases, but because there is so much positionless basketball being played right now just across the board, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting in the argument that the voting should be positionless. And that does have a lot of legs to stand on here in most arguments, mainly because you get the best players on the floor regardless of position, and most of the time you're still going to fill out that 1 through 5 on the floor. I mean, it's an all-star game, so it's not like it has to be perfect. No one's playing lockdown defense. It's a field day. They're having fun. And while you may get the talent more evenly distributed, I don't think that's the final answer to fix all-star selection. I just feel like you'll get way too far down the rabbit hole, and there'll be a handful of players that get there just because of their fans individually, regardless of where they land on the stat line, and I don't think they want to open that can of worms. And I also think pointing to the positionless take lets a lot of people off the hook and kind of shifts the blame when this is really on the players and their teams. And that's actually how you get Candace Parker listed as a guard for some reason. And I think the best example of this is Rhyne Howard and Gabby Williams. 2 players with very similar skill sets, very similar responsibilities on the floor, even though their attribute sliders are going to be comparatively different. I'm using them for their size, role, and generally where they play for their team. And I'll just say flat out, they're both 3s. These are wing players. They have the ability to hit the 3. They're decent dribblers, like they can lead the break. They can perform pretty well on the block, excellent mid-range, nasty on defense as far as length and steals, the ability to get blocks. I mean, these are the type of players you build on 2K. Just they can do a little bit of everything. And I think this is where the meatiest part of this whole argument comes into play. The wings are the ones kind of left out in the lurch, in my opinion. Rhyne Howard is listed as a guard and Gabby Williams is listed as a forward. So Ryan's in the backcourt and Gabby's in the front court, which is why I personally lean towards the people that say the labeling needs to be corrected. What these players are listed as is what really throws the selection making process off. Especially for some, Rhyne Howard might just sneak in if she was able to be selected with the bigs. And this is interesting because it forces your wings into one of these pools, and really they fit right in between. And really most of them are being pushed into the guard pool, making the chances of gaining that selection even smaller. Wildly inflating the front court, but I would say strategic if you purposely place yourself there. A lot of fans are kind of peeved on where certain players are listed, but ultimately they make that selection. At the beginning of the season, the teams submit their rosters with each player's listed position, and that's what the league goes off of. It's hardly ever changed, and even if your role on your team is altered in some way, that's still how you're going to be listed on the All-Star voting and all WNBA selection. And that's the part I find the most interesting, because again, you have Gabby Williams and Rhyne Howard playing pretty much the same position on paper. Gabby Williams chose to go with the front court, and Rhyne Howard chose to go in with the guards. And I say chose because I think even if you ask the team, hey, let me go in on the other side, because it'll increase my odds of being an all-star or making an all WNBA team between the player, their agent, and the team, that sounds like a strategic conversation. So I don't think anyone would be against it, especially when teams are well aware that if someone like Rhyne Howard can play the 2, the 3, or the 4, we're probably going to have you in all of those roles until we get this figured out, especially if we have injuries, trades, or we just figure out something in practice one day. So to everyone mad at how they're listed, this is pretty much their choice right now. And unless there are changes to the format, it's pretty much going to stay like this. There are going to be some wings who are just left on the fringes, and even as a fan that may not have voted for a certain player, I can only hope they still get in as a reserve through the media or the coaches. Well, more hope on the coaches' part, because their picks are usually merit and skill based. I'll give them that. The fans, the media, and the players pretty much vote on the starters, and then your coaches are going to handle the reserves and small tweaks to teams if a player needs to be replaced or moved, mostly because of injuries. But you know, if Caitlin Clark has to be replaced but she's replaced by a big, they're making sure things like that work. And really, I think the coaches kind of keep the machine from going off track, keeps the integrity there when you need to make those changes, which could theoretically work in the positionless argument. I think if they do make changes there, it shouldn't necessarily be positionless, but maybe open it up to a wing selection, or maybe like a flex position with 2 to 3 slots there, depending on how they want to divvy it up. But outside of that, I don't really think the selection process needs a lot of change to it. For the most part, this is for the fans, so I love that this is probably our biggest time to participate. I do think keeping the constraints on keeps this from getting wildly out of hand, but I also think they should figure out how to stop punishing certain players, specifically wings, that could ultimately land in both buckets, but probably have to strategically figure out where they want to go. Because again, if you're Rhyne Howard, who knew Olivia Miles would be this amazing right out the gate? Because yes, you want to be in front of the fans and a part of this field day of an all-star weekend, but all-star selections for any player affect your bonuses, marketing, media coverage, end of season awards. I mean, mostly that underlying narrative you want going throughout your career. So it's not the most important, but it's pretty up there. So as currently constructed, I think this process really only hurts those tweeners, because going up against 4 slots, you have to be having such an excellent and unexpected year to just be a no-brainer in that selection. This is kind of one of those things for the league, whereas they're damned if they do and damned if they don't. So in kind of a fortunate and unfortunate moment, this is left up to the player. If you know you have a better shot at being an all-star or even making an all WNBA team if you're listed in the front court instead of a guard, hey, that just seems like a no-brainer to me. But hey, I just submit the votes.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, players.